championship contender. What is up, all you lovely Knicks fans out there? It's a Thursday night, and it's a true Knicks talk. Day after recap, and I promised this was going to be a post-game show yesterday. This weird West Coast start time, it's got me a little bit flustered. I'm not going to lie. I had the double espresso yesterday, and it didn't do me enough justice. But my guy Nick, right beside me, was holding it down in the arena, and we have him here breaking down all the analysis from last night. We'll talk about this awesome victory, really. I mean, from start to finish against the Phoenix Suns. And you had some pretty good seats to witness this action, Nick. So how are you, first and foremost?
Hey, man, I've been to every Knicks game in Phoenix since 2014 when I moved out here, and these last two have definitely been the best two. Actually, I watched J.R. Smith hit a buzzer beater here, and that was pretty nice. That was pretty cool. But I got the Brunson 50 piece, and then he picked up right where he left off. There were a ton of Knicks fans in the building, and we were all having a real good time.
As is the case in most opposing arenas where Knicks fans just take over. I mean, I'm in the DMV area, so I partake in the Knicks fans takeovers of, Capital One Arena. And it's just a joy to be around a lot of other Knicks fans. I mean, this fan base travels with the best of them. Miami, Charlotte, Orlando, Phoenix, right? I mean, every single arena is basically the majority Knicks fans. And I love to see it. It's awesome when those let's go Knicks chants break out. And especially after dubs in the little tunnels. Cause I don't know about you, but I know you got good seats, but I'm all the way up in like section 300 or something like that. I'm walking down the tunnels and I'm chanting, let's go Knicks with all the other Knicks fans over there. So listen, if you're here, we appreciate you all. It's a late night Knicks talk. If you're catching the replay, no shame, but as is the same, hit those thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, not only myself, but also Nick's channel. He Did This To Me podcast. Link is in my description down below. You can catch him and his pops talking all things New York sports, as is the case with my channel. Please do subscribe and hit the thumbs up. Okay, as you mentioned, Brunson picking back up where he left off. And I was, we usually always start off with the team stats and just like how, the differentials between fast break points, paint points, and all that good stuff. And we will get into that because the Knicks actually had a really good time in the paint, as that usually hasn't been the case this season. But we have to talk about that guy, JB doing JB things. And I apologize about the background, messed it up. It's all right. We keep rolling with it. 37 minutes, 36 points, 10 assists, 2 rebounds, 7 of 11 from 3-point land. This guy, going back to last year even, right, where you witnessed the 50 piece, I believe it was in sometime December of the last season. This guy was at one point 14 of 14 from 3 consecutively in that arena. That is phenomenal. And I tweeted this out yesterday. And I was like, using the LeBron gif, I was like, when he's like licking his lips and he's like looking up at the camera, I was like, that's the mode that JB enters when he enters that arena in Phoenix against the Suns. So take me through his performance. I mean, beyond just the 3-pointers, the overall footwork that we saw from Jalen Brunson, absolutely phenomenal, as I clean up these slides over here.
So it's interesting because the gentleman that I had sitting next to me, they're lifetime, Valley guys. They were, very big Suns fans, but they could not stop talking about Brunson. Before the game started, they said, "Man, that guy Brunson, he's so fun to watch, and he's so good and so fundamentally sound." And the thing that I noticed at the beginning is that he was trying so hard to get everybody else involved. I mean, the man had 6 assists in the first quarter alone. He also went 4-4 from the field, and the Knicks just get off to a fantastic start because he's getting guys easy buckets. And then when he gets a chance, I mean, this is one of those when Brunson starts grabbing the ball and he's like jab stepping you and shooting threes, and they're going in. It's going to be a long night for the opposing team. And the Knicks come out and they make their first 8 shots. At one point, the guy next to me was like, yo, have they missed yet? And I was like, I don't think we've missed. So they make their first 8 shots. They make 13 of their first 15. They score 44 points in the first quarter. And when you're playing a team that's missing their best player and probably their third best player, those being Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, respectively, now all of a sudden, if you come out and you come out hot like that, you kind of put your foot on their neck and you put them in a position where even when they do get a little bit hot later and, kind of go through a period where they're hitting a bunch of threes, they're so far back that, that's only getting them to the point where like they're down 11. And that's how you take care of business on the road against an injured team, a team that looked great before Durant went down. I think they were either 8-1 or 9-1, but they're 1-6 since. Devin Booker, he goes ahead and has his first good offensive output in quite a while because he did have 33 points, but he took 23 shots to do it. And if you watch the game, OG was just making it extremely hard for him. And he's so good, you're not going to stop him all the time. You just want to make it difficult. I thought we did a great job as far as that's concerned. And this offense, man, is it the best Knick offense I've ever seen in my life? I really think it is, man, because when I think about it, it's like, yo, those 90s teams, those offenses were terrible. We were just grinding it out, and we had Patrick. That was basically it. And then, you know what? The Melo teams, the Melo stat, that team, that offense was all right, but it was a lot of ISO. It was a lot of ball stopping. And this team, they don't care who scores, when they score. They just make the right play all the time. Cat is the most skilled big man I probably have ever seen. We know what Brunson is. Josh Hart does everything. Bridges, he's out here hunting middies, getting it done. And OG is leveling up and becoming, the next Kawhi. And it's just like, yo, man, this offense, the scary thing is that it's going to get better.
Yeah, and that is the scary thing about it. Absolutely, you're right. Now again, even in a 138-122 victory, there are some concerns on the defensive side of the ball that we will address, right? We will get into here. But again, it's hard to sort of this is an offensive league. I think we both know that. I think we both said this on this podcast very many times. This is an offensive driven league, and you make that trade for Cat for that offense, right? For the efficiency. Whereas where this offensive set that you're running now, and you're seeing, especially the 2-man game, you're not getting that with Julius Randle. I'm sorry. No matter even what the statistics say at face value, which I'm pretty sure I haven't even looked at what Julius is doing in Minnesota overall. I'm sure Karl Anthony Towns, the numbers would point to him. It doesn't really matter. Even if the numbers would point to Julius Randle, again, I don't know what they are. The efficiency with which this offense is flowing with in this season compared to last season and before that, even with Julius Randle, it's night and day different. It's really night and day different. And really the only thing in my mind, and this is going past the Jalen Brunson discussion, and we can actually discuss this in the next slide, is just shoring up that interior defense, which is going to take time and it's going to take guys getting healthy. But you see here, Jalen Brunson putting on another masterclass performance, 36 points in 37 minutes. These guys are okay. This is where Tom Thibodeau drives me crazy, but he was getting the guys their double doubles, right? That's why they're out there in the fourth quarter that late, I'm assuming.
No, I don't think Tibbs ever does anything for stats. I don't think he's ever thinking, "Oh, I'm going to get this guy a double." I don't believe that at all. The thing about that game was, it's always a different experience when you're watching it, in person. But it was one of those games that, like, even though like we felt like we were, up by a good amount, they kept making a run to not let it get crazy. They kept making a run to like not get up to 30, and then that one time in the third quarter, I think they got it all the way down to 11 at one point. And in the fourth quarter, I was I'm usually screaming, get him out, get him out. But like that game did feel like they were a couple made threes away from like, making this interesting again. And when you look at it overall, you only have one guy getting 40 minutes, and that being Mikal Bridges. And Mikal Bridges, 40 minutes for him is like, a leisurely walk in the park. Also, I gotta admit, I was being a little bit selfish. I had a little 5 leg, same game Parleezy, all Knicks. And I needed one more bucket from Mikal Bridges, and he gave it to me with guys at the scores table. Pacome and Baby Toppin were at the scores table, so I knew he was coming out. I needed one more bucket from him. It was the last leg. I needed 2 legs going into the fourth quarter. I needed one more 3 from Karl Anthony Towns, and I needed that 20 to win 740, and he got it for me,
dude.
So
you're not
a great night for me overall.
Well, absolutely, 100% with the great seats that you got, and also the Parleezy, as you would say, heading for you. You know how many people, like there was at least 2 to 3 people that mentioned me or it was under my comments talking about, their parlays and showing me their tickets that hit. Yeah, you're just a slight bit blurry there, but it's okay. It's okay. We'll get you some time to adjust. I tweeted out, right? I tweeted out, I said, Tom Thibodeau is driving me crazy, man. Tibbs is driving me crazy. Why are these guys still in there? It's like 2 minutes left. Knicks are up 16, whatever it was. And even an announcer is just like, dude, like, what is Tom Thibodeau doing? And I tweeted that out, and I kid you not, like, probably 30 seconds left. I get like 2 responses with these parlay tickets that hit for these, my followers or, mutual followers, whatever. And I'm like, you know what? If I was a betting man, and I actually also stated this before the game, I was like, Anthony Towns, I don't know what his over-under was, but I was like, that has to be 30 plus points. I mean, you're talking about Nurkic? Come on, Nurkic? Did Plumlee get in the game? Was he available? Because I didn't even know if he was out there because he just wasn't making a difference. You know what I mean? Like,
he barely got in for a second. Yeah, Nurkic had no chance, man.
That's what I'm saying.
He had no chance. In the second half, when they said, because the first half they weren't doubling Brunson. That's why Brunson was doing whatever he wanted. And then the second half, they started to double Brunson, pay a little bit more attention to him. And that's when Cat just went off. And he was seeming to, attack the double and, just absolutely get to wherever he wanted on the floor. And then a couple times they were switching off different guys on him. And there was one guy that they switched on him that was too short and just too skinny. It was I think it was this kid Oso Ighodaro. I don't even know how I said his name. Yeah. That when they switched him on Karl Anthony Towns was like, come on, man. I don't know what y'all think y'all are doing, but this guy. And then when he's hitting step back threes, and I was like, okay, Karl, man, look. Is the thing about him compared to Julius. And Julius is actually having one of the more efficient and one of the more his percentages and everything are about as good as they have been. He's shooting over 50% right now. He's shooting 50. Yeah, just shooting right at 50%. Last year it was 47. The year before that it was 46. The year before that it was 41%. Okay, so Julius has stepped up. And, Julius is hitting buzzer beaters. Julius has played well this season. Anybody who watches this team, who watched that team, knows that we're playing a much better brand of basketball. We typically have the second best offense in the league right now, and over like the last week or so, it's by far and away the best. And that we're setting a crazy pace when it comes to games with 30 plus assists. I think we're up to 7 of those now, and last year we had 10 total throughout the entire season. And I don't know if this stat is kept, but I'm sure it is. How many less dribbles per game do we just have as a team?
It's definitely capped. I just haven't seen it.
Everybody, though. I mean, you can just see it with the eye test. We're doing such a better job of that. And the other thing about Julius is, I heard Alan Hahn say this today on Barton Hahn, and he was talking about how with this team this year, there's no little cliques and factions and how everybody is just, there's such a togetherness. And that Karl Anthony Towns coming in and being new, you already had the Nova boys kind of. But he was almost kind of alluding to there was the Nova boys and there was maybe Julius and whoever was kind of rolling with him. And he said the thing about Julius is, and we know this as fans of his for years, you never know which Julius you're going to get on a nightly basis as far as just his attitude. Sometimes he's pretty jovial, Sometimes he's just cantankerous and mad at everybody. He's mad at the assistant coach. He's mad at the ref, Brunson is so wildly consistent all the time with his demeanor overall. Though we can get into he got a little fired up last night, and it led to him kind of going off. And there's some history there too with that play. I was able to get the backstory on that today, but Julius is just his overall vibe is what it is. And I think sometimes early in the season, I was like, are we missing that? Are we missing that guy who's kind of a dog, who's kind of an asshole? Do we kind of need that? But then, man, you look at it and it's just like, yo, this team right now seems so harmonious, and it's showing up in the way that they play. There's zero ego in the way that this team plays. They clearly just want to make the best play. And when you have some of the best players and arguably the best duo and the best pick and roll and pick and pop duo in the league, if you're always trying to make the best play, you're going to have these type of results.
Well, what's the backstory of what you just said? Because I didn't hear about that.
Okay, so check this out. I guess Brunson's sister went on and shed some light on this on Twitter. I caught this on KFTV last night. Royce O'Neal. So Royce O'Neal, he and Brunson, going back to when he was on Utah and Brunson was on Dallas, there was a time where one of them games where Brunson kind of had his look at me moment, and he was killing him in that series. Royce O'Neal starts delivering hard fouls, comes up, checks him in the back, hits him with a hard screen, does this and that, blah, 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 blah. And then one point in the second quarter yesterday, Royce O'Neal hit Brunson with a screen, floored him. Brunson got up and was furious, got all after the refs. I didn't really see the screen in real time. I saw him getting after the refs on the next stoppage of play, and I was like, damn, he's pissed. And again, I'm watching the game, and I'm infuriated by the lack of whistle that this guy gets. He gets fouled 3 times just on his way up the floor. We're doing a better job though of setting some picks for him in the backcourt, which is something I was screaming for last year, and we're finally starting to do it now. But so there was beef between these, going back to that. And after Royce O'Neal did that in this game against Phoenix, that's when Brunson just he came out. I think he hit 3 of his next 4, 2 of them being threes, and just started cooking. So he's got beef with Royce O'Neal going back far enough that his sister's talking about it and whatnot. And hey, I hope Royce O'Neal is I hope he gets traded to Cleveland or Boston. So Brunson can get fired up every time he sees him, because it seems like when he does, he gives that guy the business.
Yeah. I mean, once a net, always a net for Royce O'Neal too. I mean, screw that guy. Anyways, yeah, I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of Royce O'Neal, but I actually didn't even know that. I didn't know that Brunson's sister actually talked about that. That's pretty interesting. There seems to be and even that comfortability with playing in Phoenix, right? I mean, that probably has to go back to also his Mavericks days too. So it's nice to have a player that's your franchise player that also has experience already playing in the Western Conference and having some of that familiarity with some of those guys that he had matchups out there with. So that could be a little bit advantageous. And I've never really thought about that aspect. So there's JB doing the little praying motion that he does. I mean, he didn't really need to pray for any shots to go in. They were just going in automatically for him. I mean, this guy is automatic in Phoenix. So again, Jalen Brunson cooks the Suns again. And that's basically what the storyline was on the offense. But we will get to Karl Anthony Towns here in just a second. I wanted to take a look at the team stats. And by the way, appreciate my guy, Junior Swingman here. What up, CP and Nick? Definitely appreciate you. If you all are in the chat, right? This is being streamed to my YouTube channel. This is being streamed to your YouTube channel. Please drop those comments in the live chat. There's no better time to talk about New York Knicks basketball than maybe the night before. Actually, do the Knicks play tomorrow? No, they don't, right?
No, they don't play till Saturday, 5 Eastern.
I was going to say a night before the game day, but I guess tomorrow's not game day. But it's late night Knicks talk. You might as well just drop the comments, because we're going to put it up here. And whatever you're saying, whether you're agreeing with us, disagreeing with us, or if we agree or disagree with you, we're going to talk about it. Drop those comments in the live chat, and please do hit those thumbs up buttons. Listen, the New York Knicks, so this is okay. Again, the Knicks played well. They were getting a lot of great looks on offense, but at the same time, part of me wants to take it with a grain of salt, because listen, the Phoenix Suns, they were missing Bradley Beal, which is not really a difference maker on defense. We know that. They were missing Kevin Durant. He was playing respectable defense, right? But There was also a lot of opportunities that the Phoenix Suns had in transition, right? Some open looks that they had, whether it was, three pointers, but like I'm talking about like missed transition buckets that I'm like scratching my head in terms of, are we watching a professional basketball team out there right now? And so, listen, no disrespect to them either, because I know that they're kind of hurting. I know that, they don't have KD. You know what I mean? I know that they're missing some presence there, but like, even with a Devin Booker led Suns team, that didn't really inspire any confidence out of me in terms of the way that they were playing basketball on both ends of the floor. This is not just offensively, but their defense was just abysmal. So like, there needs to be things that are cleaned up. I think that's very obvious. If you play a team like the Nuggets, it's not going to be as easy as a walk in the park as this game was. Same thing with like the Mavericks, and the list goes on and on. Again, the Suns are what with KD versus without. They're 1-6 without him. They were 8-1 with him. I mean, that's kind of an indication of the way that your organization is kind of set up, right? In terms of KD and then everybody else around him. But again, team stats here, turnovers, would still like to see that getting cleaned up. 15 is still a little bit too much for me. What the saving grace was that Phoenix also turned the ball over pretty much just as much at 14. Fast break points. This is like, if I see this kind of discrepancy in the team stats and fast break points, 28-10 in favor of the Knicks, I know the Knicks had a great night. And by the way, per last discussion on our post-game show, we were debating who in this league is better than Josh Hart at coast-to-coast buckets. And he had a ridiculous bucket coast-to-coast in this game where he probably got fouled on 3 separate occasions, and he had to let out an absolute roar after he put the ball in the basket, just kind of like telling the refs, like, what the hell did you just watch, in terms of not blowing that whistle. It was absolutely insane. But what did you make of the Knicks transition game, Nick? Like, what did you make of that? And I'm starting to get the feeling like with the personnel that's on the floor, as much as I've said in the past, like, with the lack of length, I want to see a guy like Precious Achiuwa in there. I'd like to see a guy like Mitchell Robinson there. But like, you don't get the same fast break abilities and the same strength on the break as having guys like JB running the floor, Mikal, OG, right, who is just as good as anybody else running the floor as well. And then also Karl Anthony Towns, who's lagging behind. But again, the big fella hustles down the court. Like, what do you make of the transition game right now from the Knicks, from one end of the court, however they decide to get their stop, whether it's a steal, whether it's a quick rebound, and utilizing the outlet pass? What do you make of that right now? Do you like the way that they're setting up their offense like that?
I think that one of the most underrated aspects of how we are getting out on the break, and the thing that your guy Cat brings, is his outlet passing. He gets that rebound and he makes that great first outlet pass that starts everything. And that was the thing that you saw with them. I don't know if it's something that the Knicks identified in the tape, or if it was something that it just started working early and often, and they stuck with it. But we had so many times where it was just like off of a missed bucket, it was a rebound, and then it was 2 passes and a layup. Boom, boom, quick, just straight down the floor. And I think that Josh Hart as well is another good outlet passer, and OG is pretty good at that as well when he grabs the rebound. And I just think that overall what you're seeing from this team is everybody getting more comfortable, understanding their roles and understanding how they can affect the game. So then when you get out on that break, now your secondary break is, Mikal Bridges catching the ball, and then he's taking a dribble, he's getting into the paint for that pull up. And, we know he's close to automatic when it comes to that. And then I also think that, when you look at this team, like we talked about, it's not just the ability to run the fast break. If we ever decide to put Cat at the 4, one of the other things about Cat being at the 5 is all those backdoor cuts that we see. That's because Cat has his man out at the 3-point line, so that paint is wide open like that. And so this team if they are taking care of the ball, which last night they didn't do a great job of, 15 turnovers. Jalen Brunson had 5 of those himself. And there was one point he turned the ball over. He was so angry. I thought there was a couple times, a couple of those turnovers were, balls where he's getting fouled in the backcourt and there's no call. And I'm like, yo, what is going on? But we did a good job of transition defense, and then we did a great job of pushing the ball, especially early in the game. As the game went on, we had certain times where they were hitting shots and they're trading with us, and our offense got stagnant. It's because we were taking the ball out of the net every single time. Offense is a lot better when you're operating off of a miss, and they're not being able to set up and get their defense, geared specifically towards Brunson quite often and load up on that particular side. Once we get out in front, because we're so versatile, and now we get you in cross matches and switches and whatnot, you have a serious problem. And then if you want to go and you want to take a guy like Ryan Dunn and you want to put him on Jalen Brunson, whoever
mismatch.
Not only is Brunson mismatched, but now you're getting the cross match of OG is now being guarded by like Tyus Jones or some shit. And he's just going to mouse in the house him every single time. So that's the thing, man. People want to keep doing that with Brunson. And all right, well, now we see what OG can do with a slightly expanded bag. He went from a handbag, now he's carrying around a duffel, and he can make some things happen, especially if you want to put that smaller guy on him. And obviously, we know that nobody's guarding Cat. Nobody's just shutting Cat down one-on-one. Doesn't happen, can't happen. But Nurkic in particular, and then even at other times it wasn't Nurkic. He had Royce O'Neal on him, and it was just not even close to being a match for him. He's too tall, he's too long, and he shoots threes like they're free throws. You got no chance against that guy if you want to run that type of defensive effort against him. And I just thought that we kind of took their spirit earlier. Early in the game, it was just like we just came in such a wave at the very beginning that even when they would start to get, like I said, they'd start to do something and it was like, yo, wow, guys, we got it down to 14. Like, you know what I mean? Like that can be draining. I've been that with the Knicks team has been the team that's always trying to catch up. And as you know, sooner or later, you just fall short and it's over. And I thought the Knicks did a good job of not letting it get too crazy and continuing to hunt good shots. That's the thing about the Knicks. The shots are so much better and they're so much easier than they have been recently.
Yeah, I think what you're trying to say there is fake comebacks, right? The Suns had a couple of fake comebacks.
Real quick though, the Suns, let's give them some credit. Listen, they shot 49% from the field. Okay, they shot 38% from behind the arc. Those are both good percentages. And believe me, there was one point where it felt like they couldn't miss a three, and that's when they came back. But it was just we were the superior team. And then what I do see from this team, the defense has not been where we want it to be just yet. But there's times when they really want to get serious and locked down, and they do. They just need to find some more consistency in it and do it for a full 48.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a comment, and before I get to that, actually, this is kind of, listen, we both went live on the post game, right, when the Knicks were playing the Sixers in the playoffs. Part of me kind of just feels bad at this point what the Sixers fans are going through. Look at this.
No, I don't feel bad at all.
Listen. I don't know. I just got that like feeling. I'm like, dude, listen. Okay, hold on 1 second. While we have a Sixers fan in the chat here saying Sixers fan tuning in because my teams are doo-doo cheeks this season, and that Embiid, Lowry, and PG need to all retire. They're all washed, injury prone, straight cheeks. What's this whole thing with PG going on his podcast and talking about their internal player meeting that they had? I mean, I didn't listen to the podcast, but I mean, there's a lot of not to turn this into a Sixers podcast, but like,
oh no, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it because it's not just that. It's not just that. Think about this. Think about this. They had that players only meeting. Shams came out with the report of what happened inside the meeting. It wasn't players only, actually. I think it was, like coaches and stuff like that too. But Shams came out with the report of what happened in the meeting that night. That was after a game that night.
Someone leaked it.
So someone in there immediately went to Shams and was like, hey, yo, Shams, guess what? And Shams is a Philly dude. He went to Loyola. You know what I'm saying? And obviously, when it comes to getting the scoop, he's the best that there is now, especially with Woj, which Woj done. So, like, they are dealing with an internal situation where they got this one guy who clearly, like Joel Embiid. I'm sorry, I don't think there's anybody who like rides for that dude. He's not likable in the slightest. There's nobody who's like, yo, Joel is my guy. No. He's not likable in the slightest. He's the dirtiest player in the league. And now you got this young upcoming superstar has got to talk to you about being on time. Man, it makes you be very thankful for the fact that we have a leader like Brunson. Because Brunson, none of that shit is coming along with Brunson. Brunson is there early. He's staying late. He carries himself a certain way. And I've always felt like your coach and your best player, those are the personalities that end up permeating throughout the entire team. And I just love watching Philly crash and burn. Paul George giving him a big contract at this age just because he had one semi-healthy year last year, got to be the dumbest thing ever. Joel Embiid is an crazy overrated superstar. He played in the Olympics, but then wasn't ready for the season. He comes in, he's chubby, he's late, and he's crying all the time and trying to choke reporters. Come on, man. I don't understand why anybody thought that was a good idea. And then you want to add all these like just old, like washed, like Lowry, like freaking Gordon. This is a decent roster in 2016. And we're watching them crash and burn, and I absolutely love it. And also, man, I don't like nothing about Philly. I grew up in Jersey, about an hour away from Philly. I don't like nothing about Philly. And the Mets this past year, as much as I'm tired of us getting close and not getting it done, them beating the Phillies and us knocking the Phillies out, man, I lived through 2006. 2007 and 2008. I lived through those. Knocking them out, man, felt so good. Like, it's like, after they did that, I was like, yo, now we really playing with house money because y'all did this for me. This is something that I can always remember and take back. We took out the Braves to get in, and then we took out the Phillies. And now watching the Sixers be an absolute dumpster fire after you had cats talking about how they were the best and they were going to do this and blah, 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 blah. Today on ESPN, they ranked big threes in the NBA, and Philly's big three was ranked ahead of ours. So, hey, let them keep doing what ESPN socials really just tries to rile up Knicks fans. I think that's like part of their mission statement. But honestly, I just watching this happen to them is so great, and I don't think it's going to get any better for the Sixers. I really don't.
Oh no, they're done. No, they're done. They're done. I mean, they got Maxey and who else? I mean, they're done.
Oh, they hit on the kid McCann. Okay. McCann. Yes. Yo, listen. I know, everybody wants to talk about how zesty he is and his TikToks and his fingernails, but he can hoop.
No, he can hoop for sure. Oh, okay, McCain and Maxey. But besides those two guys, I mean, they don't got nothing going for them. I mean, Caleb Martin was a cute signing. You know what I mean? Like it's just not. And then you have your future in Tyrese Maxey, who is calling out the process.
But how soon until he's asking out?
Maxey or Embiid?
Maxey, because the thing is that, look, if you tied to Embiid, right? And if Embiid isn't asking out, which right now with Embiid's contract, I don't know what assets any team has given up for him.
Facts.
So Maxey, at some point, man, if I'm him, I got to make a big stink and demand a trade and get up out of here.
Well, I mean, we'll see. I think it could be a little bit too premature for that, given what's going on right now. But Paul George is not helping your case, bro. I mean, he just got injured again. No, he just hyperextended same knee.
Missing at least the next two games. And that game, I watched the highlights last night. Like Embiid was in and out of the lineup. He had to go back to the locker room at one point and then come back out. Blah blah blah. And the thing about Embiid is, at his size and his injury history, this is not going to get better for him. It's only going to get worse and worse and worse as time goes by.
And they're cracking down on load management too. That's not a great recipe.
Yeah, but I mean, what can they? The only thing they can really crack down on that is like with fines, and like the money don't mean nothing to they can't fine them enough for it to actually mean something. I think they just need to be smarter about not talking about it so much. But at the end of the day, like
they can find it
kind of hard. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. But the organization, they got more money than the players. So like they listen. If I'm them, I am definitely trying to load manage Joel Embiid. Okay, I wouldn't have come out and said it, but I might have said something early in the season like, "Hey, man, maybe let's look at it and try to avoid some of these back-to-backs and whatnot, and just keep it to yourself." And then you can always just say he's got a sore knee.
Anytime you surround your franchise and try to build your franchise over, around a guy that's just not available, like Joel Embiid has not been for the Sixers for a lot of his career so far, it's just not a recipe for success. But that's why the Sixers are in the situation that they're in. And
how do you feel about him playing in the Olympics?
Yeah, it's probably not the best of moves. Like, if I'm a 76ers fan, it's probably not what I want to see at all.
Bro, you can't stay on the floor. You need to go play more basketball in the offseason. Yeah. No, you need to be working on your cardio, getting your weight down to put less stress on your joints. And the last thing you need to be doing is running around having some, Serbian dude dive at your ankles. Like, no, that's the last thing you need. And if I was a Sixer fan, if I was part of the Sixers organization, I would be furious. I didn't want Brunson to play. I was happy when Brunson broke his hand and he couldn't play and he was taken out of it. I was like, good, especially with the way last season ended and with how much he played, man, go sit down for a little bit.
You can get Jason Tatum to go play. I mean, he just won a ship. You know what I mean? And he somehow has more fuel to the fire in terms of, winning a championship and because of his lack of playing time. Whatever. Anyways, that's besides the point. Listen, we appreciate everyone being here. I know we kind of took a little bit of a side tangent here talking about the Sixers because we got Mr. Boof in the chat, talking about the Sixers. Salute to Big Task. Absolutely 100%. No, let's not talk about it. Let's laugh about it. Absolutely. We do laugh at the 76ers and this situation that I don't even know what they got going on. I don't even want to go down that route. Cause I forgot what the dude's name is. He talks about 76ers basketball. He just yells a lot. He's a Phillies fan too. I forgot Broads. I think it's Broads or whatever. I mean, that dude's hilarious. I listened to that guy's 76ers talk and it's just the lack of transparency too from that organization is something that I've learned that they're also not the most transparent with their fans. And that's something that would rub me the wrong way. The
Knicks are probably the worst.
The Knicks aren't either. I know the Knicks aren't either. And we've had these conversations about that. But I'm talking about on a greater scale more than just injuries. But anyways, Jeremy's saying if Lindor had run the team meeting that the Sixers were in, might have been in business. Absolutely. And nothing
That's a top-tier comment. That's a top-tier comment right there, Jeremy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Fact. Shout out to Jeremy. Shout out to Big Taz. And shout out to my man, Jake. I know Jake is a Milwaukee Bucks fan. Embiid is a poor man's Giannis. Embiid is a poor man's Giannis. Listen. I don't even know. Giannis is Giannis would be asking out at some point too. I don't know. I mean, some of these Eastern Conference teams, I mean, they're kind of in flux. I don't know. Listen, we're talking about New York Knicks basketball. They're 9-6 on the season. The pain points is what I want to talk about, right? I mean, the pain points has been, if there's one complaint from myself all season long, it's been the paint point differentials, and it usually hasn't gone in the favor of the New York Knicks. Given your tallest defender is a 7-foot Karl Anthony Towns, where I'm not saying that he's piss poor on defense, but let's be honest, sometimes, especially when he's in foul trouble, not really contesting a lot of these shots in the manner that he really could. And there's a lot of times where he's not in foul trouble and he's contesting these shots, but I just don't think his footwork is up to par in the post to go. I really don't think so. If you put a guy like Jokic, in the paint against Karl Anthony Towns, I mean, Jokic is winning that battle all day long.
Karl Anthony Towns did a great job against Jokic in the playoffs last year, by all accounts.
Maybe there's something that brings playing against probably the best center in the league that brings it out of you. But I'm talking about some of the battles that he loses to some of these lesser centers in the paint. I don't know. You know what I mean? If I was a betting man, I'd take the over on some of those points. Anyways, all that to say is that this is not only Karl Anthony Towns' fault, right? I mean, you got to take a look at who's around him at the end of the day. Your next tallest defender is who? OG Anunoby, right? I mean, he's 6'8". Mikal Bridges is 6'7", right? But again, like there's a lot of things that can be mitigated. I know that the state of the league and the state of the NBA is going more towards an offensive driven mindset, and therefore there's going to be a lot more outside open shots or outside shot creations where the Knicks, presumably with where they're set up, you know what I mean? They're set up to mitigate that. But if you're not keeping opposing teams out of the paint in terms of mitigating the dribble drive, there's a lot of bad things that can happen. And we've seen some of those bad things happen to the Knicks on the defensive side of the ball. So it's kind of like a glass half full, glass half empty. Yes, today's NBA is not set up to where, you know, these teams are prioritizing post guys like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, right? Just hitting continuous sky hooks, unless you're Karl Towns, because I've seen him do that a couple of times already this season. Not quite the sky hook, but like, you know what I mean? A little baby hook. But you know what I mean? The perimeter defense is getting better, but I'd still like to see it get even better than what it is right now, because as soon as the opposing team dribble drives and they are successful in doing so, it seems like all bets are off because they can play the two-man game down low. Most teams in their 4 and 5s are going to be outsizing, right, the Knicks 4 and 5. So like, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts and opinions on that? Maybe I'm overanalyzing it, but like with where the Knicks weaknesses have been so far defensively and giving up those paint points, you know, last night was an outlier, right? Because 60 paint points compared to the 44 paint points that the Suns got. Obviously, you're going to take that all day long. But like, do you think in the long run of this season, we know Mitch is coming back at some point, and we've got injury updates on him and Precious Achiuwa, as well as Deuce McBride. We'll talk about here in just a second. But like with those two bigs coming back, like trades aside, like where do you think this is sustainable, especially going to the playoffs? Like what we've seen in terms of the paint presence on the defensive side of the ball.
So what I think it's going to end up happening is that you're going to see where the starting 5 stays the same, but then when we bring in that second unit is when we're going to really turn up the D, when we're going to start turning people over, when we're going to start getting offensive rebounds, and that's going to lead to that defensive that second unit being a lot more effective and really being a weapon for us once we get everybody healthy. I don't think you're going to see a lot of Cat and and Mitch playing together. I do think that you might see some Cat and some Precious. I'm hoping that Precious, he looked like he was a little more confident and was, a little bit more competent when it came to shooting the 3 in like the preseason before he got hurt. So I'm hoping that he can at least be somebody who's a threat out there. And I mean, as we've seen, things can change very quickly. Josh Hart, middle to end of last season as compared to Josh Hart beginning of this season is night and day when it comes to shooting the 3. And that's clearly he put in some work over the summer and he got his confidence up as well. What I think that we have to wrap our minds around when it comes to this Knicks team is the fact that we are, instead of being one of the best defensive teams and being a decent offensive team, and then that overall, accumulating to a net rating that is in the top 5, I think we're still going to be in that top 5. I think we could even be top 3, but it's going to be inversed. We're going to be the first or second best offensive team, and the defense might be 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, but we're so good on offense that the sum of all of that is a lot more wins than losses. I just think that that's the way that this team is built, and I think, like, look at a team like Denver. Denver won a championship. Jamal Murray, Joker, neither of them are good defenders. They put enough good defenders around them, then they have, but those two on offense are so efficient and they run the two-man game so well, and their ability to get themselves good shots and then also give everybody else good shots. That's what really allows that team to be a championship caliber team. And I think that's kind of the thought process that we're going for. And I also think it's going to really come down to OG. And because like right now I'm looking at OG and I'm like, okay, I try to think of like other championship teams that I've seen, really good teams that I've seen, and like the role that he is. And I think at this point his ceiling is Kawhi, but I think his basement is like a Sean Marion on that Dallas team. where he can stick a three. He plays really good defense. And I just want OG to stay healthy. He was wearing a sleeve on his leg that he has not been wearing prior. He seemed like he was favoring that right leg a little bit. There was one time where he went down in the game before and he was reaching down around that calf Achilles area. So we have to make sure that defensively we are trying our best in the paint, but we're not going to be a great paint defensive team when, OG and Mikal Bridges are our second best player, biggest players on the floor. We're just not going to be. So what they can do and what they need to do is they need to do a better job of keeping guards in front of them. And they got to do a better job. They still haven't totally figured out the communication with the rotations, and it ends up with, just wide open threes or guys, just being able to drive to the basket completely and totally unencumbered. And we have to get better at that. And that's something that I'm seeing, some strides in, but it's still a work in progress. The defense has to get better. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, 100%. And as it relates to this game, like there were just a lot of opportunities where the Suns could have just taken more advantage, and they just simply didn't, because they didn't have their best foot forward, obviously, in terms of their personnel. And I'm not naive to that fact, and I don't think really any Knicks fan is. So, but at the end of the day, one thing that I will say is that the Knicks did something that I've been trying to just at least see out of them, especially because I was like, I don't know how many times I'm going to mention these two games this season. But again, the nightmares of Knicks basketball that have followed me this season so far are those two games against Houston and Atlanta. And I'm like, get off to better starts. And like, I'm not sure how much Rangers hockey you watch, but it's the same thing with them. It's like the starts are abysmal and they're playing from behind. And that's what I don't want the habit, to formulate. I don't want that habit to formulate for the New York Knicks. So let's take a look at the box score here, because listen, man, and I was kind of curious when you said that the Sixers' big three was ranked ahead of the Knicks' big three. Who was the third Nick? Was it OG? It
was OG, yeah.
It was OG. Okay.
Which
I figured as much.
And you know what? I commented the other day on Twitter. Somebody was saying, like, who has been the Knicks like best player this year, some question like that. And I responded to him. I said, the answer is no one. And that's what's so beautiful about this team, is because who's going to be the guy who steps up and becomes the third? I mean, obviously Brunson and Towns, those are our best two players, but who is going to be offensively the guy who gives you the effort outside of those two? You never know. And quite often the answer is everybody. Because we score over 10 with our entire starting five basically every single game. The game before this one, we had over 20 for everybody other than Brunson, and we win running away when Brunson shoots 3 of 14 and only has 12 points. That's the thing with this team, man. They really don't seem like anybody's like, I got to get mine. They make the best play. They know that we got our two horses, but everybody else is capable on a given night. I mean, Bridges, the consistency of his stat line is wild. It's
facts. This is the same stat line that he posted the previous game. And making these slides is the same one.
Dude, he's going to have between 14 and 18. He's going to shoot right around 50%. He's going to add in a couple rebounds and a couple assists. I mean, it's just uncanny. That guy gives you the exact same thing every night. He had a couple games where he popped off and got in the low 20s, which I want to see some more from him. Last night, he was missing some middies that he typically makes. I was really expecting him to have a big night against his old squad. But yeah, man, you can see that this team, there's zero ego on this team. Zero ego on this team.
Yeah.
And like I said, the offense, it's only going to get better over time.
100%. I mean, it's like 7 of 14 from the field seems to be like Bridges' favorite like combination there in terms of every game, man, every game. And what's crazy is that like OG last night only took 7 shots, so that's pretty insane too.
But didn't seem like he felt any type of way about it. You know what I mean? We just know that by watching this guy. It's not like he's like pissed off after the game that he only took 7 shots. He's not at all.
Facts. And so the question, like why I asked you that question about who was the, Knicks' third guy in that big three, is that guy Josh Hart is having a ridiculously good season
Ridiculous.
under the radar.
Ridiculous.
19, 11, and 6, 8 of 11 from the floor. And like, I get that, like, we're talking about it right now. And I know that people like at least acknowledge it, but like, we're not talking about really how crazy, his stat lines are consistently for the Knicks this season. I mean, 19, 11, and 6 for a 6'4" small forward. I'm going to label him as a small forward because that's what he is, right? At the end of the day, stature wise, playing as a power forward essentially on this team. I mean, again, you could kind of flip flop the power forward or small forward nomenclature to, between OG and Josh Hart. It doesn't really matter. Josh Hart plays bigger than he is. We all know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like 19, 11, 6, 8 of 11 from, and then the threes are also falling for Josh Hart, and he's confident in shooting those threes where I was begging. Like, there were points last season and early on this season where I was like, dude, shoot the. I don't like to curse on these podcasts, but I was like, shoot the damn ball, bro. I was like, shoot the damn ball. Please shoot the ball. And he's like finally got it like into his head that like he can shoot. He's capable and he's competent to shoot the ball behind the arc. And we know that about him because when he first came over to this team, nobody was expecting anything from beyond the arc, right? Offensively, out of Josh Hart. And he just had this ridiculous stretch of games where it's just like everything was going in for him from the 3-point line. So, like, we know he can shoot the ball. The only time that he gets into a little bit of a conundrum is when he doesn't believe in himself to shoot the basketball. It's all from within at the end of the day. And honestly, if I was on that roommate's podcast, if they did like a Q&A, I wouldn't even ask him a question. I'd just be like, shoot the ball, Josh. Like, don't even hesitate. So, like, again, Josh, if you end up watching this podcast, shoot the ball. That's it. That's all I got to tell you. But like, dude, like OG, undisputed, like great season. He's been getting paid 200 mil, like awesome. Yo, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to hold myself accountable. I thought 40 or 4 for 80 for Josh Hart was kind of crazy. But I'm going to hold myself accountable, right? I'm going to hold myself accountable because I know there's a lot of discussions about when Josh Hart was like, entering that phase of getting a new contract. He was getting paid like what before he got paid the 20 mil. He's like 13, 14 mil he was getting paid. Yeah. And like, a 6 mil increase from that on a new contract on a 4-year deal was kind of like, are the Knicks going to really do this or not? Dude, they did it. And I don't even think they thought twice about doing it because this is what you get out of Josh Hart. So, honestly, salute to Josh Hart. I know that I've been like questioning him and I'm like, maybe put this guy on the bench, but like, I don't care whether he's on the bench or whether you put him in a starting lineup. I know he's going to produce. I don't really care. He's that versatile, dude. He's that versatile. And he's one of those guys that's like also just selfless. You know what I mean? And he's almost too selfless at times, which is why we have these conversations about him not shooting the basketball enough. So like, I wanted to go into a little bit of a think piece there about Josh Hart because this guy's special, just flat out.
So it's interesting because first of all, you're getting old, CP, because when you start saying stuff like 20 million is too much, you're thinking with an old brain. 20 million is not what 20 million was in the NBA. Like it used to be, those were the best players in the league. The best players in the league now get paid 60 a year. Okay, so 20 ain't that serious.
Well, we have one of those players on our team already, so
exactly. And what a bargain that was. I mean, the intangibles, his name couldn't be more perfect because he pumps blood into this team. He pumps life into this team. And it is everything from a huge offensive rebound to the push in the head coast to coast, finishing with either hand, the great defensive plays that we've seen. I mean, I can think of like at the end of a game, who were we playing last year where he got some sort of like crazy block that was like, that it seemed like a broken play and like they got us. And then he, last line of defense comes out of nowhere and gets the block. Like, and the other thing I like about Josh Hart is that there's been times where I feel like, the Knicks are not being as intense as they need to be. And I see him calling out his teammates as they're walking off the floor and being like, yo,
He
let's
did
go.
it to Jericho yesterday. Did you know that? Like there was a play where I forgot, I think it was Booker who got like a rebound or something like that in the post, and Josh Hart wanted Jericho to double, and Jericho came over, but he went over to a different guy. He was like dropping in coverage or whatever. Devin Booker scores over Josh Hart, and Josh Hart looks back at Jericho. He's like, "Why'd you leave?" And I'm just like, that's the accountability this team needs. I love that.
And, you know, actually, in the game before, I think it was a game against the Wizards. At the end of the game, where we're just running out the clock, we get the ball back with less than 24. And Jericho, you could tell he didn't understand that he had to get it over the timeline or it was going to be an 8-second. And Josh Hart flipped on him because of that too. Listen, and we got to throw a little love to Sims because he's been a bit of a whipping boy for the fan base this year. And he's played very well recently. He's played well on the defensive end. He has, you know, he's given us that vertical lob threat that, you know, we've seen be able to open up the rest of the floor, especially with a guy like Mitch in previous years. He's been playing well. We got to give Sims his credit. You know, everybody wants to see Huck Porty, and sometimes you got to realize that Tom Thibodeau is smarter than you. Okay. And we see what we're seeing out of Sims. And sometimes you got to give a guy a little bit of confidence and, you know, show some stick withedness with him. I don't know if that's a word, but we're going to use it anyway. But yeah, man, I just think that, you know, when it comes to Josh Hart, he's so invaluable to this team. And I can't think of a guy that is more suited to wear that uniform, to wear that number in that uniform. And I just couldn't be happier that this guy is on our team. Last year, when we lost to the Pacers, that series, we kept dealing with the injuries. We kept figuring it out. That series was over when he did whatever he did to the abdominal muscle. That's when it was really over, when we didn't have him anymore, because he was making up for everybody else. And once we lost him, it was just too much. There was too much attrition. I love this guy, man. I love watching him play. I love his attitude, the way he talks, the way that he is willing to mix it up with another team or with an official or whatever. He's exactly what we need. He's like, you know, he's like our Draymond to a certain extent. You know, we got a bunch of guys who do a lot of things. We need somebody with that dog in him, and that is outwardly that way. Like OG's got the dog in him, but it's all, you know, he's very zen. It's all within. He's not, you know, he doesn't outwardly show it. You need a couple guys who outwardly show it, and Josh Hart is that guy.
Just a guy from Silver Spring, Maryland, man. The only thing that I have to say bad about Josh Hart is that he's a Commanders fan. That's really the only thing that I have to say about that. I mean, really. No, listen, I mean, this starting five, you know, again, you hope that the health is just the main factor with this starting five, because yeah, they do have their lapses sometimes. They have their defensive lapses. Yes, they're not the tallest bunch. But again, if you are committed to playing the brand of basketball, of mimicking that two-man game between your center and your guard of Jokic and Murray compared to Cat and Brunson, if you're committed to copying, which is what you said, I believe in our last stream, what the Celtics are doing over there in their 5-out, you know, no-win set, essentially almost, you know, most of their possessions, then this is the way to go. And you just have to just stick to it. I mean, when things were going poorly, I'm not going to lie, I didn't see the vision, especially with such a trade that went down and changing this team up so drastically. And when you have championship caliber aspirations, even before the Cat trade, it's kind of like hard to grasp that this was a trade that shook this team to its core. It really did, because it's just like such a different team without Julius, and you substitute Karl Anthony Towns. And it's such a different team while having Mikal Bridges in there instead of Dante DiVincenzo, right? It's a complete 180. But you know what? At the end of the day, one thing remained consistent between you and me when we were doing our post games last season is that we trust in Leon Rose. We trust in this guy. If this is the vision that he has for this team, you know, ever since taking over this team in 2020, each step of the way, outside of that one outlier year, right, where the Knicks didn't make the playoffs, has been golden. It's been awesome. And at times it was like, especially starting out with Leon Rose in that regime, it's like we're working with nothing. We're working with Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, Elfrid Payton, Reggie Bullock. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was like they made something out of nothing. And now we're sitting here talking about this starting lineup. And I'm like, that's a crazy progression. And you know how many moves externally, right, through the grapevines that we didn't even see at sometimes, like, that had to go down. Yeah, it's just like I appreciate Leon Rose. I'm able to take a step back at the end of the day and realize just within these basically 5 years at this point, this is like us Knicks fans throughout these past over 2 decades. Not many, if not anybody, thought this was possible. And I just want to give Leon Rose's flowers. He doesn't miss. He doesn't miss.
Think about it like this. Seriously, truthfully. So that one down year, those were the two big misses, Evan Fournier and Kemba Walker. Okay. Those were swings and misses, no doubt. Right. So he realizes the error in his ways. Okay. And, he gets them out, and then he goes and he gets Jalen Brunson. We know that everybody thought that was an overpay. Look at the Knicks, they're so desperate to get the guy, and they overpay this guy. We now know that was one of the greatest moves. It's probably the greatest signing in franchise history. One of the greatest signings in NBA history, especially when you consider that he comes back at a discount after that. Okay. And ascends to being, a top 5 MVP candidate. So that's a move that nobody saw being as good. I like the move. No one saw Brunson becoming what he's become. Okay. Which, now in revisionist history, you look at, like, I was thinking about this when I was the whole Royce O'Neal situation. When you see a guy who he comes in and your best player gets hurt and he steps up on that type of stage and has that type of game, a lot more people should have seen, like, this guy might have something. So then after that, what do? We go out and we get Dante DiVincenzo. People thought that was a decent signing. It's all right. That ends up becoming one of the best contracts in basketball. He has an absolute career year, is so important to our team last year, and then also is, delivers one of the greatest moments in Knick history with the shot against Philadelphia in the playoffs. Then we make the trade, RJ and quickly for OG. Another trade that a whole lot of people had a problem with at the beginning. Hey, that was a good trade. Nobody can say that was a bad trade. And it was good for everybody because RJ's doing his thing up there. He's balling. He's back home, and they needed another ball handler. They needed another guy who could dominate the ball and could create for himself and others. The Knicks needed somebody who was more efficient, who could spread the floor and could cut and could play defense. Well, guess what? OG's like the best at all of those things. Then you go into the offseason, and then we make another move where we give away Dante. The reason that we're able to trade Dante and why he's so valuable is because of the contract. He's such a good deal. That makes him that much more valuable. And then we trade, and also we traded him at the top of his powers. He's not having anywhere close to the year statistically that he did last year with the Knicks. Way, way down. I feel bad for him. If we can figure out a way to bring him home, let's bring him home. But then we trade Julius as well. And as we know, I was not happy about this trade. Karl Anthony Towns is a different guy than I thought he was. Okay. It's not just that I'm seeing him all the time now. There's numbers out there. He's playing in the paint more than he typically does. He's stepping up the rebounding. And obviously some of that is the fact that he doesn't have Gobert, in there gobbling up all those rebounds. But think about how many moves I just laid out. He don't miss. Leon don't miss.
12.5 mil for the 4 years for Dante DiVincenzo. And you get rid of that after the one career year that he had. You know what I mean? Like, and then also the domino effect of the RJ Barrett situation. RJ was never going to succeed behind Julius, and damn sure not Jalen Brunson, in my humble opinion. He gets rid of RJ first, right? And then you have the 2-man game of Julius and Jalen Brunson, where it's just like, yeah, these guys are good, but they probably don't fit together in the best manner possible. Gets rid of Julius Randle. Let's bring a guy in here that can work extremely efficiently with Jalen Brunson. This guy's not dumb. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of Knicks fans. Sometimes I'm one of them that thinks they're smarter than Leon Rose, but like, at the end of the day, when these moves happen, I'm like, I might not like it up front, but this guy's a track record. So I'm going to trust and entrust what he's doing. The same thing with the Mets and David Stearns. I mean, it's the same thing, mirror image. I'm trusting these guys no matter if I like the move up front or not. I will tell you why I don't like it, and we'll see if they prove me wrong. Most times I am wrong, right? I'm not getting paid the big bucks. I got a podcast. That's why I do it. You know what I mean? So, anyways, anywho, yeah, man, there's nothing better than this box score right here. OG taking the 7 shots is what it is. We've seen him progressing into like 13, 14, 15 shots, which is awesome. But like 14 points on 7 shots, great. 7 rebounds, great. We already seen in the previous slide that the Knicks out rebounded also the Suns, which is awesome. And we do have a question here before we get into some injury updates. Do you think the Knicks can beat the Cavs and Celtics in the postseason? Cavs, absolutely. I think they're frauds. I'm sorry. 16-1 in the season. I don't care. Yeah, I think the Cavs are frauds. I'm sorry. I don't care.
The Cavs are good. I think the Cavs are good.
No,
the thing about the Cavs is this.
Frauds. I'm going to say it right now. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I think the Cavaliers are frauds. And I take a look at that game where the Knicks should have handed them their first loss of the season, and the way that went down. I don't care that Julius is not here anymore. You bring Mitchell Robinson to this team, whether he's starting or whether he's not, probably not, right? As per your point, even Precious Achiuwa. The Cavs are not beating the Knicks in 7. Sorry.
The reason that I doubt the Cavs when it comes to the postseason, and to answer your question, Jeremy, is okay. So now it's the playoffs. We're running a lot of Jared Allen and Evan Mobley on the floor at the same time in the playoffs. Now that means that defensively, if Jared Allen is getting pulled out because he has to guard Cat at the rim, I mean at the 3-point line, and now he can't be in the paint, he's kind of a net negative at that point, right? Now, I will say that Mobley looks way better this year than I've seen before. He looks like he's way more confident, like he's being way more aggressive on the offensive end. I've always thought that he was kind of a guy who just didn't give you everything that he should because, when you look at his frame and his skill level, but I feel like that's all stepped up. And I do think the Cavs are for real. And I think they're for real for a couple reasons. First of all, they're well coached. Kenny Atkinson is a great coach. Johnny Bryant went over there as well. Don't forget, he was instrumental with the Knicks these last few years, and he bounced, and Rick Brunson took his spot, and the NBA has a problem with that, I guess. That witch hunt is ridiculous. But also Donovan Mitchell, he's only playing 31 minutes a game this year. We know Donovan always gets nicked up. So if they can keep him down and that range when it comes to minutes, I think that's great for them in the long run. But I think that the Knicks have a chance against anybody. There's nobody who it's just like, oh, we have no chance against them. I think a healthy Knicks team would have really given the Sixers a run for their money. But I also think it's impossible to really evaluate something like that at this point of the season. I mean, listen, I know that's what we do. We prognosticate, but at the end of the day, we're not even coming. This team, how much different does this team look right now than they did a week ago? Okay. So things are changed. Everything is fluid. And I think that we're going to see a whole different type and level of Brunson where he becomes even more of a facilitator. He's now had 3 straight games where he's been in double-digit assists. And you can see that it's not just the passes that lead to assists from both him and Towns. The amount of gravity that they have, the amount of hockey assists that they get is, that's another stat that I wish that was kept and a little bit more easily accessible when it comes to the NBA, because people talk about it all the time, but there are some guys who their ability to, find that guy, Brunson's ability to find a guy in the opposite corner and get the ball to him on a pass that, as Clyde would say, should never get through, is uncanny. It's amazing. He's so good at it. And I just think that when you look at what this team is, we have no idea what the ceiling is and what they could become. And that's something that I think we won't really know until February, probably, is when we'll really start get humming. But as far as any team in the East, I'm not scared of nobody. I think any team in the East, it's all gonna come down to health. If we get into the playoffs and we're relatively healthy, and especially like if our starting 5 is still our starting 5, we're gonna be a problem.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if you're asking me, Cavs or Celtics, who I would fear more, it's obviously the Celtics. I mean, again, like Evan Mobley, I hear you. I know they're 16-1. I get it. Like the Knicks basically lost themselves the game where they lost to the Cavaliers. Like they lost that game themselves. Let's be honest with you. Evan Mobley, I mean, The guy is a tremendous talent, don't get me wrong, but like I feel like his type of game with his stature, he still doesn't really have an elite post presence. Like he plays off of like offensive rebounds and he plays like more off ball than he does trying like he doesn't create his own shots. Like, you know what I mean?
No,
I
he
don't
does
think
not.
he does not create his own shots. And that's something that like it could play to the Cavs' advantage in the playoffs, but more often than not, if you have a big man like that you're relying on the entire season, it's not going to play well for you in the playoff time. You know what I mean? I just firmly believe that. So we'll see what happens. Again, I'm wearing the Cavs. I'm wearing the Cavs, but I understand that it can also come back and bite me. I do realize that. So bookmark it if you need to. You know what I mean? We'll come back to this a few months down the road. We're an hour and 10 minutes on here, so I hope you all are appreciating this conversation. It's not usual that we go an hour plus, going an hour 15 here. We do have some slight injury updates. This is per Stephen Bondi too. So, Precious Achiuwa is going to be cleared for practice at some point this road trip, this 5-game road trip. I just said cleared for practice just for the sake of saying it because I think it's coming soon, right? I think Precious Achiuwa is going to be back soon. But who might be back sooner than Precious Achiuwa is Deuce McBride. And we always have this conversation. Are the Knicks actually being truthful with us? Is Deuce McBride a true day-to-day? Well, the latest report doubles down on the fact that he's a true day-to-day. So, like, he's
on the trip. He wouldn't be on the trip if he wasn't a true day-to-day.
Correct. And so, like, he's questionable. He was questionable in Phoenix. He's going to be questionable in Utah. He might actually suit up. We'll see. It's a knee inflammation type injury, so we'll see. Mitchell Robinson, again, I mean, this just threw me in for a loop when the season began anyways, because, like, I was not expecting him to just be out probably at all, but, like, definitely not until the next calendar year. He started taking shots on his ankle. You know what I mean? Like shooting the basketball while being on both feet, I guess. I mean, what is he doing? Having like a boot and like a little bit of like a rollerblade there. One of those like machines that you get when you have like ankle or knee surgery and you're like kind of just like pushing yourself on this like scooter. You know what I mean? Like, is he taking shots on that? Is that what this report means? Because like,
no, he's
walking taking around. Shots on an ankle. Like, what? I don't know. Anyways, that's what he's doing. He hasn't been cleared for contact. Precious Achiuwa has been cleared for contact, if I'm not mistaken, in his practices. So again, these are injury updates. Deuce McBride is probably the one that's going to be on the court the soonest. Then it's Precious, and then it's Mitch. Is there anything that you have to know on this, Nick, that you would like to put in on this?
No, I mean, listen, I do think that Deuce is legitimately day to day. Mitch is traveling with the team. I think that's a good sign as well, because then that means that he's not that means he's doing more on court stuff. Because if he's doing like more like pool, stem work, stuff like that, then he's going to stay home to be able to do that at the Knicks facility. So that means that he's doing more on court stuff. And, Precious, I think, will probably play before the end of this trip, it sounds like. And I think that with him, you got to take it easy because it's a hammy, and with the soft tissue, you never know. But at the end of the day, I mean, when we get these three guys back humming, and then maybe add like a Landry Shamet down the road, somebody, who can stick a three pretty consistently. And obviously we saw Deuce was continuing his ascension, and really looking like a guy that, could be in the conversation for sixth man of the year. So I can't wait to get these guys back. And then because realize that once we get everybody back, that's another adjustment period. Because now, we're going to be running slightly different lineups. Deuce is going to be in there. That's going to affect Campaign. And Campaign, listen, man, again,
solid.
I'm going to keep saying this. I can't believe I like this guy. I can't believe it. He was my least favorite player in the NBA. Just his whole act, some of the most successful reels I've ever made are me making fun of Campaign. Spike Lee liked one, actually. But now he's our guy. He's our guy, and I love what I'm seeing out of him. He's never shy. He's going to put up a shot. He's going to hit some big shots, okay? There's going to be a time in the playoffs where Campaign does something that we're going to always look back on like, yo, remember when Campaign did? You know what I mean? And he delivers a hard foul. He plays decent defense, and he just has he's
scrappy. He's scrappy.
You need a couple of assholes on your team, man. You need a couple of those guys. You know what I mean? Like everybody can't be, nice like Cat is nice. Cat's a nice guy. Okay. So, the campaigns to Josh Hart's, I think Precious has got a little bit of that in him as well. He's got a little dog in him too. You need a few of those guys. And I couldn't be happier about campaign. Again, shout out to Leon Rose.
Yeah, and Campaign was even given like an interview saying like, he was enduring having to go play like overseas or something at that point, and he just didn't feel good, and he just wanted to get back into the NBA and like be consistent for a team out there. And I know he's kind of like hopped, around back and forth. Last year he was on the 76ers, and he kind of got into it with Jalen Brunson. And like, yeah, I agree. Like, he's a scrappy player, man. Like, he knows how to shoot the basketball. He knows how to facilitate. He's one of those guys that I feel like a championship caliber team has, right, on their bench. They really do. And he can put up 15, 17 points, as we've seen, in a hurry, right?
He raves about the Knicks locker room too. I think that's very important. A guy that's moved around as much as he is, talking about how much these guys truly like each other. I think that's notable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just gonna say it, like, I don't know how he fit into like the minutes category in terms of the distribution from Tibbs, but like, I always liked Campaign and the signing, and it's another Leon Rose move that we should point out. And by the way, in this whole, couple minutes that we just spent, a couple minutes ago, giving Leon Rose his credit and his flowers, did anybody mention the Deuce McBride 3 for 13 extension that Leon Rose decided to give him?
The best deal in sports. Like, honestly, Deuce should fire his agent. Whoever his agent is.
Has Deuce fired his agent yet?
That guy, if he had just waited and got onto the open market, somebody would have given him $15 million a year, some shit like that.
Facts. Big facts. All right, that's the injury updates. A look ahead here to the Saturday game. I know that could be convenient for you being in the time zone that you're in. 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for people on the East Coast. Not so great, especially on a Saturday. 9-6 Knicks versus the 3-11 Jazz. These are your starting 5 probables. The Jazz did have a game tonight. I don't know if they won or lost against the Spurs, so they're either 4-11 or 3-12. But again, I feel like this starting 5 for them is respectable. So I'm like, they're obviously playing in a tough Western Conference. It seems like they've had a couple of close ball games. Kyle Filipowski, I mean, like, he was a second-round pick for them this past draft. He's doing decently, I guess. I would kind of assess just based off the numbers. Again, I don't watch Jazz basketball. I don't really watch much West Coast basketball. I never stay up late enough for it. But, like, John Collins, don't like the guy, but, like, he can hoop. We obviously know Lauri Markkanen, like, he can hoop. Colin Sexton, I mean, like, this seems like this seems like a team. Actually, I don't even know where I was going with that. This seems like a team that could just like beat you like on any given night. And honestly, the Jazz, the last couple of times around, they've kind of given the Knicks like some troubles. You know what I mean? Like they've given the Knicks some problems. So this isn't also, I know the record is what the record is, but like I wouldn't just write this off as an automatic W. Anyways, this is going to be kind of a tough game. It's on a Saturday. It's at their house. What do you have, to offer in terms of like what you're looking forward here, and then wrap things up and get out of here?
So yeah, the Jazz lost tonight to the Spurs. They lost 126-118 to the Spurs. Markkanen had a good game, 27 points. Balanced game. John Collins, 18, Sexton, 18, Keontae George, 19. And what I think is going to be really important is we have to come out and have a fast start. This is what we've done in these last couple games against an injured Phoenix and against the Wizards. We come out and we put our foot on their neck immediately. And when you're playing a young team, you're playing in Utah altitude, and you come out and you just had a couple days. I'm pretty sure the Knicks stayed in Phoenix, because I know they were talking to Karl Anthony Towns about whether or not he was going to golf today. So I'm pretty sure they stayed in Phoenix for at least a day or two. And, athletes love coming here. They love coming here. The weather here this time of year is great. The scenery is great in a few different ways, if you catch my drift. I wouldn't be surprised if they stayed here, but they're going to head now to Utah. And I think that Indiana game, the way that we came out, we got upset with ourselves with the way that we played and the way that we just didn't bring it with a certain level of an intensity. So I look for them to keep up the trend of coming out and starting strong against an inferior team. Listen, I'm sorry, they're 3-11. We got to get this dub. Then we go and we play, a couple tough games against Denver and against Dallas, though it looks like we might get no Luka for that. And who knows if Joker will even be back for that one. So we might dodge a couple bullets there. But I'm looking for the Knicks to come out and take care of business. Let's make this game such a laugher that, Brunson and Towns don't play in the fourth quarter. That's what I would like to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's always the goal. Obviously, it's not always realistic, but like, I've been impressed. I've been thoroughly impressed with the starts that the Knicks have been getting off to in the last couple of games. And that's something that, again, I've been trying to stress. And that's something that they did not prioritize early in the season in terms of getting off to those hot starts. And it was really that Atlanta Hawks game that just is like, if the Knicks ever have a start like that, I might just kind of throw up because it's like that was brutal. But anyways, listen, I like the starts that they're getting off to. I like the distribution in terms of the box score that we just went over in this stream as well. I like a lot of things that are going on with the New York Knicks. There's a lot worse of positions that they could be in given how they started off this season and kind of how they've been rebounding. So like, they're playing some pretty solid fundamental team basketball. I think that there's some opportunities for improvement in terms of the interior defense and also just the careless turnovers from the offensive perspective, but they clean those things up. You know what you're talking about, and they're already an elite team. I feel like a lot of people would agree to that, but you would solidify yourself as one of the elite teams up with like the Boston Celtics of the world, right? And that goes back to Jeremy's question about the Cavs and the Celtics come postseason time. So listen, the Knicks are going to be in the running. We appreciate everyone being here. Knicks 100 GM. Can we win our division before we get all carried away? All right, there we go. I don't think does anybody care about winning divisions anymore in basketball? Like,
I do. I pay attention to that. I like that. I'm just but honestly though, I mean, I don't know if we're gonna have a better regular season record than the Celtics. The Celtics are, a fine-tuned machine. It's about being, what type of condition we can go into, May and June and really see what it is then. But I don't know. I mean, I could see maybe if they get some injuries, but I think the Celtics are gonna end up having a 60+ win season once again.
You know what? This is a great point here, too, before we close things out. Laurie could give the Knicks problems. He plays a lot on the perimeter, if I'm not mistaken. Would you put OG on him and just have Karl Anthony Towns just switch over to like Filipowski?
Yeah, I would. I think putting Towns, I think Laurie will get Towns in foul trouble immediately. I think that it's got to be OG and some McHale as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's the most realistic option defensively. At least start the game off like that and like mitigate those early minutes, maybe mitigate the first quarter. Because again, I agree with you. Like that's always the concern with a skilled big guy that knows how to play on the perimeter, which Karl Anthony Towns knows how to do. He just doesn't know how to guard those types of guys. On defense, especially like just playing hands off and like not getting to that foul trouble. So like I would put OG on Laurie to start the game. So I appreciate everyone being here. We appreciate everyone being here. This is a True Knicks Talk day after recap with your boys CP and Nick. An hour and 20-30. We haven't talked Knicks basketball in a single stream for this long. So we had a lot to talk about. I know you were in the house for this game. You had a great time, great seats. Make sure, as always, to hit the thumbs up buttons on this stream. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed yet, whether you're over on X or YouTube. Come over to the YouTube and subscribe. We'll be doing more day after recaps, more direct post-game streams, a couple of pre-game streams, schedule permitting we'll be doing. And again, we appreciate the support. Please do go subscribe to Nick's YouTube channel, Talking Knicks Basketball, Talking Jets Football, Talking Mets Baseball with his pops, mostly in an optimistic manner, but this football season might drive them insane, just as it's driven me insane. But you know what? We got good news, and you got good news. I would say so. This is a whole different discussion because I don't know how you feel about Joe Douglas, but I think his time in New York was kind of getting to the point of being done. But the Giants benched Daniel Jones. I'm kind of happy about it. Tommy Cutlets is finishing the rest of the season for the Giants, and the football in New York just needs to get up to the par of the basketball and the baseball. So we'll see what happens with that. But subscribe to the channel. Link to their YouTube channels in the description down below. Check out all the previous content. Again, if you're a Mets fan and a Knicks fan, that's great. But if you're just a Knicks fan, it's okay. There's a lot of Mets content that's on the channel. But we will be doing Knicks stuff all season long. Don't you go anywhere. Subscribe. All right. Catch you all later. Let's go Knicks. And Utah Jazz, Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace.
Thank you for watching the True Knicks Talk podcast. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe for more Knicks